doing Let's Talk About Pagan Festivals. It gives some history on where our traditions and beliefs and stuff like that came from. Leave it alone, please. This is the section that says Midwinter and Yuletide. It's history on it. The wheel of the year turns around again and again. We reach the point for the midwinter solstice, the longest night of the year. This is the point at which the sun is farthest away from where we are here on Earth. We actually know it is the Earth that is moving. How our ancestors used to know what time it was is they'd have something called a dial. So a dial have this big piece in the middle of it that almost looks like a triangle, and it'd sit there, and as the sun hit it from different directions, it'd be like a clock. And that would be how they would be able to tell what time it was, let alone what season it was, because of where the sun was in the sky. So Stonehenge is a big thing over in like England, Welsh area. It's a big ceremonial monument, just like a half circle or whatever. And what they did is they have these window type pavilions set up. They're huge, very, very tall, like taller than Daddy tall. Daddy's over 6 foot, so they're huge. And what happens is when the sun comes to the lower point of the winter solstice, Yule time area, they would have their own ceremonial stuff there. I mean, the site's been used for various things, but they'd have their own ceremonial site there. And the sun would come through and hit them just right. And they'd soak up all the sun's warmth on this time of year, and they'd be able to do their celebration. It's a very important site that they have not even been able to fully tap into to understand all the relevance, all of the special stuff that occurred, and the connections that we had with it. There actually might be some contamination, since they're wanting to put a highway underneath it, and all the headlights that are going to be hitting it might actually contaminate and ruin some of the artifacts and the paintings and the structure itself, and help diminish it more. It's been standing for many, many years, so it is something to be worried about. But yeah, so for us in the Northern Hemisphere, and obviously this person says in Scotland, our winter solstice starts on the 21st of December. And Yule usually starts on the 22nd of December, which is Mom's birthday. Very special time. Other places, if they're at different places, different continents of the planet Earth, as it rotates and stuff, whether it's Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, or if it's a different continent, maybe the sun for their winter solstice is in their June time, when it's warmer instead of cold like it is here. So to our ancestors, it looks like the sun was dying and going away, perhaps never to come back. So ancient wise men, druid, shaman, to those who kept a careful note of sunrise and sunset, would watch very carefully. For about 4 days later, he would report back to the rest of the village that the sun was coming back and had been reborn, and at that point, they would most certainly have a party. They would celebrate because the sun has come anew. From one point of view, the pagan point of view, we might explain this way. The mother goddess will labor all night long to give birth to the new sun, the solar deity, the tiny god. We will light candles for her, sing to her, pray that she will be successful, and that the divine God, the power that inspires us, brings us warmth and strength, would come back to us. If you look very carefully, it is about 3 days and 3 nights before you notice the length of the day increasing. You can begin to see a well-known pattern, the number 3, which is in a lot of different stuff, paranormal as well. It's not always looked at as a good thing, but we have the well-known reindeer who pulls away around for the world in order for Santa to bring gifts to the children on the 25th of December. We have Mother Goose, or Frauloli, Frau, capital Holle, the winter goddess who shakes her feather bed all over Europe to bring snow. And that would be a lot warmer than what it actually is. That would be lovely. That would probably be fun because this other stuff is wet and cold and yucky.
Ooh.
Feathers would be funner. And in the northern Europe, we have the Yule goat, most likely descendant from the Norse god Thor, who rode through the sky on a chariot drawn by 2 goats. In Scandinavia and in Northern Europe, the Yule goat is a well-known decoration these days, made out of straw and tied with ribbons. So you remember how in the movies, we've even seen movies where it said that they did it like a Trojan horse, where they hid in a horse, right, to be able to sneak attack their enemy, right? This huge horse that they were in. Remember that? In that one movie that we watched? Okay, so that was actually history. So when they build these goats, they are that huge, just like that huge horse that all the men pushed. They look like little ants next to them, remember? They pushed this horse up to the gates, right? Okay, so they pushed the horse up to the gates by all these might, and they had tons of men that were putting the effort. I don't know how they do this with this goat because it's not on wheels. It's made out of sticks. So they take a bunch of sticks and they like tie them together and they form the loops and everything, and they make this massive, huge goat that they tie down with straw, and they have red ribbons attached to it for like decoration, right? So it's really pretty. Every year, somebody doesn't like this goat or something. It's like they're protesting it or rioting or whatever you want to call it. It ends up lighting it on fire like it's a wickerman. Okay, the goat is not supposed to be lit on fire. It's a beautiful decoration, and it's not the Wickerman Festival. So, but it happens every year. It's like a traditional thing. They expect it every year. So every year they have to put in this massive effort. Instead of being able to store it somewhere, they put in this massive effort to rebuild it and make it new every year. I think is a community project in that area every year, because you would think that if one person was doing it, it'd take so much longer to get it done. But it's something that has happened every year. So, we hold a midwinter solstice ceremony every year. For us, it is normally early to allow the members to have more time with their families. Please stop. You almost kicked my drink. But if you are on the other side of the world, then you no doubt will be able to hold your ceremony on the day itself or very close to it. The party, the celebration, which our country-dwelling ancestors would hold once they were told that the sun was being reborn, is called Yule. A large log, almost a tree trunk, would be brought into the main hall or gathering place and lit in the middle. A festival feast would take place, and the people would rest, eat, and drink, and entertain each other with songs and stories. Each day, the 2 ends of the log, okay, so what they did is, many people thought that they were bringing these through their windows or into their doorways of their home and just sticking it in the fireplace. This is saying that they took this huge tree trunk like log that's almost the size of a tree, which means it has to be massive, okay? And they took it and they put it in the middle of this community center where all the townsfolk went, okay? And they had this little like area that they would keep it in, and they lit it in the middle on fire. What happens when we do that in our fire pit?
It's still on fire.
We have to constantly fix it, right? So this is saying that every day there was people that would have to push 2 ends of this tree trunk together it back into the fire, because the middle part where it was burning would be gone. So they'd have to push it back into the fire that was still burning there in order to keep it burning. So it would, each day, 2 ends of the log would be pushed into the middle of the fire, and the party would continue for what is known as 12 days of Yule. Now, Iceland has 13, where they celebrated a little bit differently, but Iceland has 13, so it's like 12 to 13 days depending on where you're at. This is another pagan festival that has been taken over by early Christian church and is now almost secular. Research tells us that the Star of Bethlehem was in fact a conjunction of 2 planets in the sky. In 1614, which was a long time ago, the German astronomer Johannes Kepler, I'm sure I'm not saying it right because German names are said differently, determined that a series of 3 conjunctions of planets Jupiter and Saturn occurred in the year 7 BCE. There would be 1 conjunction of planets lined up as seen from Earth with the naked eye. And then because of the orbit of Earth, they would appear to come apart again or travel backwards. That has got to be a weird sight. There would then be a second conjunctions when the planets lined up and yet a last third before they drew apart. This took place on the 15th of September, and ran into early October on the years around 7 BCE, possibly 5 BCE. So Jesus indeed, if indeed he was born, which we all know he was a person, would be born around September or October and not in midwinter. But the people had celebrated the birth of their divine child, the child of inspiration, warmth, and heat, 3 days and 3 nights after the midwinter solstice, so the festival was renamed Christmas, Christ-MASS. And everyone kept the dates of midwinter and Yuletide, which became Christmas. It appears that this Christian God, who has 2 birthdays, a real one and a symbolic one as well, just like our queen, who also has 2 birthdays, an official one and a real one, marking the moment when she took her first independent breath. We don't stop our children celebrating Christmas. They all have presents. They all look towards Santa coming in the night and bringing them toys. Or in Iceland, they do the 13 days. So what their tradition is there is they stick an old shoe out on their windowsill for 13 days. Every night, an elf brings them a present. Every night they check their shoe, there's a present on their windowsill in Iceland. So that's their tradition there. You stick an old shoe outside, and every day you check it, you get a new present for 13 days. So Santa, brings them new toys. The elves bring them toys there. We tend to speak of it as Yuletide amongst ourselves. The reason is that pagan parents do not believe in pushing their own personal beliefs onto their children. We believe that they should learn about all religions, and once they get to an age where they can choose for themselves which spiritual path is right for them, we will then do what we can to support them. If they want to come along and join in with us, then we do not stop them. But neither do pagan parents that I know of stopping their teenagers from going along to church or stopping them learning about other religion. Each person is an individual and needs to make their own mind up as to which path is right for them. We should just seek to teach them and show them what our own ancestors may have done. So here's a story, okay? Tansy was 3 years and 6 moons old. She had her 3rd solar return last summer when the old druid told her that the sun had once again come around to the same place it had been the day she was born. Tansy spent a lot of time visiting the Druid because she did not have to do any chores yet, because she was too small to carry water, too small to cook over the fire, and too small to shake the fur skins that her family slept under at night. I guess it's to get dirt off. That makes sense. The days had been getting shorter and shorter, and the nights had been getting longer and longer. Tansy didn't understand why all this was happening, so when she went to visit the Druid again and ask him, "Well," replied the Druid, "it happens every year like this, and soon we will have to wait and see if the sun will be reborn and start to grow stronger again." "Tell me what we have to do," asked Tansy. So the Druid sat down and told her all about the longest nights and the days to wait afterwards. As the sun grows weaker and weaker and further away from our land, we are taken over by longer and longer nights. Soon now, the night will become so long that we must light a fire to welcome the return of the light. Far away, in the distant land, where gods and goddesses live like mother of the gods and carrying the new sun, on the longest night, she will spend all night bringing the new light into the world, a sun reborn in midwinter to bring warmth and light to us all. As we will all meet in the darkness, and we will light one fire. From there, all other fires will be lit, and we will welcome the new sun, the divine child of midwinter, back into our world. Then what? Asked Tansy. "Ah, that's only the start," said the Druid. "We must measure the light each day to see if it is growing. If it is, we shall celebrate and have a feast." That makes sense, because we do that with our kids. We measure them to see if they're growing multiple times a year, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so Tansy and her family, with all the people from the village, met on the longest night from the darkness, lit one fire. Then all the homes in the village took a piece of the fire to start a new light. Each day the Druid measured the length of the day until on the fourth day he announced that the sun was growing in strength and we had a slightly longer day. At that point, Tansy's father brought a big log of oak into the main village hut, and it was lit in the middle. They had a big feast with lots to eat and lots to drink. This, the Druid told Tansy, was called Yule and happened every year after midwinter. See, and then we have some things to do. We can draw a picture of a standing stone with a little bit of yellow light touching its top. You can decorate the stone with glitter. You can do Yule cards, which we did a Yule card mailing this year. We mailed it to various families and decorated and colored and made our own Yule cards. You can draw holly leaves on the card and stick some little cotton balls for berries if you want that are red. Paint a Yule log. Some people bake Yule logs. Those also look yummy. Or they make their own candle things about what we can craft. This is just a drawing, honey. You can paint a picture. You can do paper chains in your room. Those are fun. We're not doing a turkey. We did the Yule cards. That's something we did this year. Make some biscuits with grown-ups, cut them into shapes of holly leaves, and shape them into cheerful chap dressed into red that comes to visit and bring presents. What's his name? Who wears red and brings presents? Yeah, Santa. There's a it says there's a holly and Santa biscuits basic recipe method. that's in this book. So instead of using a moon cutter, you can use a holly leaf cutter, or a Santa cutter, or a fern tree shape. Once your biscuits are cooked, make a little bit of icing and sugar and add them into the colored balls into the biscuit and make the trees look like they had decorations on them. Now this is a little midwinter Yule prayer. As the night grows longer and longer, give me patience to wait for the newborn light. Reminds me, Mother Goddess, that I am your child, and help me be kind to both people and to animals. Bless me, my family, and my friend this long night, and teach us all to be happy and follow the new light. I think it's important to do something like that because we're coming into a new year. So, you know, the sun reborn, a new light is very important to know those things. We also have a story about a new moon in which we just had. So maybe I'll read this again when we have another new moon. Because we just had one actually. The 30th was a new moon. So, yay!